Italian Somalis. Italian Somalis. Italian. Italo-Somali are Somali descendants from Italian colonists. History. In 1892, the Italian explorer Luigi Ropi Brichetti for the first time labeled as Somalia the region in the Horn of Africa referred to as Benadir. The area was at the time under the joint control of the Somali Jaledi Sultanate who, also holding sway over the Shebel region in the interior, was at the height of its power and the Omani Sultan of Zanzibar. Italian Somaliland. After World War II, during the Second World War, Britain occupied Italian Somaliland and militarily administered the territory, as well as British Somaliland. Faced with growing Italian political pressure inimical to continued British tenure and Somali aspirations for independence, the Somalis and the British came to see each other as allies. The first modern Somali political party, the Somali Youth Club SYC, was subsequently established in Mogadishu in 1943. It was later renamed the Somali Youth League SYL in 1945, and that the territory would be under British military administration BMA. As a result of this failure on the part of the Big Four powers to agree on what to do with Italy's former colonies, Somali nationalist rebellion against the Italian colonial administration culminated in violent confrontation in 1948. 24 Somalis and 51 Italians died in the ensuing political riots in several coastal towns. In November 1949, the United Nations finally opted to grant Italy trusteeship of Italian Somaliland, but only under close supervision and on the condition first proposed by the Somali Youth League SYL and other nascent Somali political organizations, such as Hizbiyya Dijil Mir Somali, later Hizbiyya Dastur Mustaqbal Somali. Despite the initial unrest, the 1950s were something of a golden age for the nearly 40,000 remaining Italian people in Italian Somaliland. With United Nations funds pouring in and experienced Italian administrators who had come to see the territory as their home, infrastructural and educational development blossomed. Relations between the Italian settlers and the Somalis were also generally good. This decade passed relatively without incident and was marked by positive growth in many sectors of local life. The economy was controlled by the Bank of Italy through emissions of the Somalo shilling that was used as money in the Italian-administered region from 1950 to 1962. In 1960, Italian Somaliland declared its independence and united with British Somaliland in the creation of modern Somalia. In 1992, after the fall of the Syed Barre administration, Italian troops returned to Somalia to help restore peace during Operation Restore Hope Unisum I and Roman II. Operating under a United Nations mandate, they patrolled for nearly 2 years the southern riverine area around the Shebel River. By the early 90s, there were just a few dozen Italian colonists left. All were elderly and still concentrated in Mogadishu and its surroundings. The last Italian colonist, Virginio Bresolin, died in Merca in early 2010. Italian population in Somalia. The first Italians moved to Somalia at the end of the 19th century. In 1923, there were fewer than 1,000 Italians in Italian Somaliland. However, it was not until after World War I that this number rose, with the settlers primarily concentrated in the towns of Mogadishu, Kismayo, Brava, and other sites in the south-central Benadir region. The colonial period emigration to Italian Somaliland initially mainly consisted of men. Emigration of entire families was only later promoted during the fascist period, mainly in the agricultural developments of the Villaggio Duca degli Abruzzi Johor near the Shebel River. In 1920, the Societe Agricola Italo-Somali was founded by the Prince Luigi Aimdio, Duke of the Abruzzi, in order to explore the agricultural potential of central Italian Somaliland and create a colony for Italian farmers. The area of Janel in southern Somalia near the Juba River was another place where Italian colonists from Tiran developed a group of farms. Under Governor de Vecchi, these agricultural areas cultivated cotton, and after 1931 also produced large quantities of banana exports. In 1935, there were over 50,000 Italians living in Italian Somaliland. Of those, 20,000 resided in Mogadishu, called Mogadiscio in Italian, representing around 40% of the city's 50,000 residents. Other Italian settler communities were concentrated in the Villaggio Duca degli Abruzzi, Adale Itala in Italian, Janale, Jamane, and Kismayo. The same year, during the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, there were more than 220,000 Italian soldiers stationed in Italian Somaliland. By March 1940, over 30,000 Italians lived in Mogadishu, representing around 33% of the city's total 90,000 residents. They frequented local Italian schools that the colonial authorities had opened, such as the Lyceum. Italian Somalis were concentrated in the cities of Mogadishu, Merka, Baidoa, Kismayo, and the agricultural areas of the riverine Juba and Shebel valleys around Jauhor/Villaggio, Duca degli Abruzzi. After World War II, the number of Italians in Somali territory started to decrease. By 1960, and the establishment of the Somali Republic, their numbers had dwindled to less than 10,000. Most Italian settlers returned to Italy, while others settled in the United States, United Kingdom, Finland, and Australia. In 1972, there were 1,575 Italians remaining in Somalia, down from 1962 in 1970. This decline was largely due to the nationalization policy adopted by the Syed Barre administration. By 1989, there were only 1,000 of the settlers left, with fewer after the start of the Civil War and the fall of the Barre regime in 1991. Many Italian Somalis had by then departed for other countries. With the disappearance of Italians from Somalia, the number of Roman Catholic adherents dropped from a record high of 8,500 parishioners in 1950, 0.7% of Mogadishu's population, to just 100 individuals in 2004. The Italian Somali population in Somalia, from 1914 to 1989. It was concentrated in the area around the triangle Mogadishu, Merka, Jauhor, the most developed region in those decades. An Italian ambassador in the 1990s believed that the wide practice of concubinage during the colonial years had created a kind of ethnic community with nearly 50,000 Somalis who had at least one grandfather or. It is a situation similar to the one documented in former Italian Eritrea. However, in the 2010s, the Somalis who declare they have Italian ancestors are only a few thousands, concentrated mainly in Mogadishu and surroundings. Italian language in Somalia. Prior to the Somali Civil War, the legacy of Italian influence in Somalia was evinced by the relatively wide use of the Italian language among the country's ruling elite. Until World War II, the Italian language was the only official language of Italian Somaliland. Italian was official in Italian Somaliland during the fiduciary mandate and the first years of independence. By 1952, the majority of Somalis had some understanding of the language. In 1954, the Italian government established post-secondary institutions of law, economics, and social studies in Mogadishu. These institutions were satellites of the University of Rome, which provided all the instruction material, faculty, and administration. All the courses were presented in Italian. By the end of the trust period in 1960, over 200,000 people in the nascent Somali Republic spoke Italian. In 1964, the institutions offered 2 years of study in Somalia, followed by 2 years of study in Italy. After a military coup in 1969, all foreign entities were nationalized, including Mogadishu's principal university, which was renamed Jamacata Ahmada Sumayyid Somali National University. Until 1967, all schools in central and southern Somalia taught Italian. In 1972, the Somali language was officially declared the only national language of Somalia. though it now shares that distinction with Arabic. Due to its simplicity, the fact that it lent itself well to writing Somali since it could cope with all the sounds in the language, and the already widespread existence of machines and typewriters designed for its use, the government of Somali President Mohammed Syed Barre, following the recommendation of the Somali Language Committee that was instituted shortly after independence with the purpose of finding a. During this period, Italian remained among the languages used in higher education. In 1983, 9 out of the 12 faculties in the Somali National University used Italian as the language of instruction. Until 1991, there was also an Italian school in Mogadishu, with courses of middle school and lyceum, later destroyed because of the Civil War. The Somali language also contains a few Italian loanwords that were retained from the colonial period. The most widely used is ciao, meaning goodbye. As part of a broader governmental effort to ensure and safeguard the primacy of the Somali language, the post-independence period in Somalia saw a push toward replacement of such foreign loanwords with their Somali equivalents or neologisms. To this end, the Supreme Revolutionary Council during its tenure officially prohibited the borrowing and usage of Italian and English terms. Alongside English, Italian was declared a second language of Somalia by the Transitional Federal Government in the Transitional Federal Charter adopted in 2004. Somali Mai and Maksatiri and Arabic were the official national languages. Following the adoption of the Provisional Constitution in 2012 by the federal government of Somalia, Somali and Arabic were retained as sole official languages. Notable Italian Somalis: Prince Luigi Andio, Duke of the Abruzzi, mountaineer and explorer, member of the Royal House of Savoy. Annalena Tonelli, Christina Ali Farah, writer and poet. Ijeaba Sigo, writer, journalist and activist. Jonis Bashir, actor and musician. Ilissa Kadijabove, activist and voice and film actress. Saba Anglana, actress and international singer. Luciano Surrey, singer-songwriter, journalist and radio host. Zara Bani, athletic champion javelin. Salvatore Colombo, Bishop of Mogadishu. Leonela Escorbati, Catholic nun. Fabio Liverani, football player and football manager.